Imagine for a moment it's a cold winter's day in southern Ohio. You and your lovely wife are headed home after running some errands, and there's enough groceries in your trunk to feed your family for weeks. You spent $17. The weather, while frigid, does little to sour your mood, and your wife just alluded to you possibly getting laid this afternoon. Nice. But somewhere, out there in the snow, something is lurking. Something powerful, something large, something not yet revealed. The kind of something that seems to exist solely to ruin the overall good time you've been experiencing. And as you round the corner of a road your taxes just haven't gotten to yet, it shows itself. A violent, writhing darkness. Somehow, there is a horse on the hood of your car that's landed hooves first, allowing the beast to kick your wife crazy style through the windshield. Now, if you're anything like me, you might be saying, no, that's not possible. How could that happen? Horses are top heavy. If you hit a horse with your car at low speeds, the legs are going forward, and the top part would crush the occupants, as seems to have happened a handful of times throughout automotive history. But hooves first? No, that is ridiculous. Reality simply does not allow for something like this to happen. At least not with horses. But cinema is not so rigid. We as a viewing audience are willing to suspend disbelief for pretty much anything, except for time travel. You see this horse thing happen and go, well, alright, maybe. We say hold your fire, so maybe hold your horses means the same thing. But make this horse come from the future and suddenly we've got something to talk about. If he kills my beautiful wife, would that not change the future so much that he might not come back in the first place? Was this somehow predestined? If the horse is arrested, how do we contend with the fact that the present is now one horse heavier for an extended period of time? We ask these things because time travel as a plot device is a slippery slope. The moment it goes from a device to a mechanic setting rules and driving conflict, we enter what I would call how the fuck would you know territory. This is where time is in peril, but some guy who may or may not be the reason for that has just managed for the first time ever to get his machine to power on and now has a full understanding of everything that means. The scientific method here ends at I got the engine to turn over, and then you just kind of fuck around. Now these are stories, of course, and sometimes entertaining ones. In a way, they benefit from our unwillingness to just accept them. It gives these movies Reddit longevity. But that is a waste of a good thing. Time as an antagonist is boring, overdone, and kind of lazy. And when it's not lazy, it's annoying. Over-explaining everything in order to have this rock-solid logic around something that doesn't exist, and even if it did, none of us would understand it. Think I'm wrong? Explain in detail how Xbox make Halo on my TV. Yeah, shut up. You don't understand time travel enough to start a forum about how another guy who doesn't understand time travel got it wrong. But what does this have to do with horses? Well, I'm glad you asked. The 1992 movie TimeScape opens with that horse thing and then tosses you into what I can only call the greatest time travel story ever told. The Grand Tour is the first film made by writer and director David Twohy, now best known for movies like The Chronicles of Riddick and Waterworld, both about an outcast uniquely qualified to tackle the environment of their too much of one thing planet.
You're not afraid of the dark, are you?
Holy shit, that's a lot of water.
Hey, what are you doing?
The Grand Tour, on the other hand, is about a guy who's an alcoholic in a world where having a couple of beers in the comfort of your own goddamn home makes you an alcoholic. By the way, I'm calling TimeScape the Grand Tour because this film has several titles, and when I emailed David Twohy, he corrected me, explaining some stuff unrelated to my original inquiry. Thanks, David. And to you, viewer, just know you're allowed to email pretty much anyone for pretty much any reason. We're introduced to our protagonist Ben in the form of a drunken nightmare flashback, which shows us the day his wife died by horse. Then he's established quickly as a good dad, a trustworthy handyman, and someone who still hasn't learned to keep his eyes on the road. It's been some time since the equestrian, and he and his daughter Hillary are now in the process of renovating an old house into a bed and breakfast, but work stalls when a bus full of strange people arrive, just begging to stay in his construction site, which he reluctantly agrees to despite there being an already built hotel in the middle of town, a hotel they are just thrilled they can see from the window. The reason for that being that these are time travelers, and more specifically disaster tourists, here to see what they call the spectacle, a tragedy that will leave that hotel and the area immediately surrounding it a smoldering crater. See, the future of this world is so perfect, so unburdened, that the elite pay to travel alongside actual scientists and academics so they can watch people suffer and try to feel something. Sort of like they do today, but more sci-fi. And that's the trailer stuff. I'm not going to completely spoil this movie because I really do want people to watch it. It is free on YouTube and other streaming services. But I am going to make a case for why it's perfect with limited spoilers, so here's that. Where the Grand Tour really succeeds in its storytelling is in its strange realism, a kind that's truly lost in today's timescape. About 15 minutes into the movie, 10 or so after the tourists first arrive, is when Ben first becomes suspicious of them, and it takes very little for him to go, oh, Time travelers. Really, it seems more like that's his first instinct, and we're building a case for that conclusion rather than the other way around. And when he finally confronts one of them after finding their time passport, it feels like we're on the same page as he is, instead of the usual thing where characters are just catching up to what we as the audience already know.
Give it back. Tell me something, Mr. Quish. What year are you from?
If made today, 80% of this movie would be Ben wandering around going, "What is their secret? I need to crack the code." But just look at the things these people do and ask yourself, how long would it take for me to come to the exact same conclusion as Ben? He's just using common sense to uncover their not very well disguised secret, prompting the tourist to label him as a very clever bygoner, a slur they use to refer to us in the future. Despite their motivations, the tourists really aren't villains in any traditional sense. Their apathy towards the real suffering of bygoners isn't much different from how we look at something like Pompeii. The tourists aren't going to Auschwitz or Hiroshima. They don't revel in man-made suffering, they just are passively interested in the uncontrollable, and it's weird. But this doesn't sit right with Ben, who likes his town, even though they treat him like shit.
I found some old newspapers up here, and there was a story about the sleigh, the horse.
Also, his daughter has been legally kidnapped by his ex-father-in-law, who's the judge and is suspicious of the horse thing, rightfully so. Hillary is in the middle of town, so, that gives us a daring rescue, an arrest, an extra Ben through time travel, an acceptance that he's, I guess, somehow a coward for not fighting the horse. And resolution, of course. Believe it or not, I really didn't spoil anything with that synopsis. That's how good this movie is. But let's address the time travel paradoxes because, of course, and I'll give you the canon answer to anything we can throw at it. What the fuck do you care, pal? You're not a time traveler. When Ben confronts the Time Chancellor about his inaction and criticizes their use of their technology, he responds with this.
I'm not going to get into this too deeply with you, Mr. Wilson. We found in early dabbling that time was not the fragile thing that many assumed that it would be.
Ben keeps pushing and the guy just mogs him before saying, "You think time's fragile? Well, we know it's not." That is how time travel should be explained. The same way a sailor should respond to a guy who barely understands buoyancy. Two Bens? What about the space-time continuum? Shut up, bygoner. Not as many people died because Ben knew what was coming? What's it to you, time pedestrian? Wait your turn. Ben goes back and either saves his wife or gets better at the piano, we have no idea. The Grand Tour has no interest in pretending these people don't immediately present as time travelers and no reason to make sure that we understand how they do it. And it doesn't need to. Because they don't dedicate a bunch of its runtime to explaining themselves, we get actual story. So much story that I gave you a whole plot synopsis without even touching most of the movie. They don't tell us what they don't need to. A movie has limited runtime, and using half of that to get ahead of some pedant internet freak looking to poke holes in the mechanics is lazy and boring when it comes to actually writing a story. As for what's easier when it comes to explaining your time travel, that would be exactly what was done in the Grand Tour. I didn't even know brushing off these questions was an option, but when you do it, there's so much more room for plot. Like, does it really serve the story for us to know what fuel the time machine uses? And oh, that's right, it's you. Here to offer some healthy contrast to this TimeScape thing. How far in the future are you from? Like a week, why? Well, I don't know, your hair. Oh, this is ash. This is this isn't my hair color. I don't like the implications of that. I don't like that at all. Well, it's not illegal. That doesn't make it right. That's not how that works. And I still have to talk about the horse thing. Yeah, go think on that. Okay. Did you mention the scene where Ben punches that lady? No, I didn't think people would like it. Wrong. Look at this.
Move.
No. Stop it!
I don't like it, like in practice, but you just don't see that very often. The Grand Tour may be a perfect movie, but I need to talk shit about an easy target, as is the YouTuber way. Time Trap. The story of Time Trap takes place almost entirely in this time dilation cave that holds the Fountain of Youth. The fountain produces layers of humidity and everything dampened by it slows down. Which is pretty cool, but don't get used to that though. We're brought here by an archaeologist, Hopper, who's been searching for his family that vanished like 40 years ago. After decades on the hunt, it is all led here. So far so good. Honestly, I was invested, but that storyline will be taking a windows fully closed, no AC, no tree cover type backseat and is not very important. Instead, we're following his students and some of their friends, and they suck, but I'm getting ahead of myself. When Hopper finds the cave and peeks inside, there's a cowboy standing completely motionless, almost as if he's frozen in time. So he leaves for a few days and returns to find the cowboy in the exact same position as before. Not a problem, the guy is probably just not in a rush. But as soon as he steps through this time firmament, the cowboy starts moving at a normal pace, and the sun starts rising and setting at a speed so absurd that the dog he brought with him has surely perished by the time the scene ends. And that is our intro. We as a viewing audience now know pretty much everything there is to know about this cave. Most importantly, that it slows time down so much that the cowboy has only made it like 6 feet in and has been walking for quite a while, as is evident by him being a cowboy. As for the rest of this though, Hopper's disappearance sparks investigation by his students, and the movie fully introduces our actual main cast, none of whom have a personality except for the 10-year-old sex pest whose only dialogue is horny, and then he dies by caveman.
For you, my love? You gotta earn it. Hey Jackie, I brought my projector if you want to go up in there and watch movies later. That's how big my love is for you. She's totally a girl. She has all the fun parts.
Furby, shut up.
I could summarize this movie some more, but it really is just a bunch of long, incredibly unengaging scenes where these guys wander around with all the same information we have going, man, this cave is weird. I can't wait to go home. And it's not like they're going at this with no information. For one, they can see outside, but then they find the young player's GoPro and it shows that weeks had passed on the surface by the time he entered the cave after them.
I ate all the food I could find and drank all the water, and at this point I've decided that my friends are probably dead.
They have no reason to not know what is happening. Anyway, they're lost in the cave, which is insane considering everyone's cavalier use of glow sticks. But what's not lost is hope, because one of them is a rock climber, so she heads on up and discovers that Exxon's shareholders continue to be very rich well after they entered the cave. If you don't like that joke, just pretend I said some shit you agree with. The state of the Earth doesn't deter her as she hunts for signal and completely ignores the fucking spaceship in the sky. Does not bring this up to her group upon returning.
Okay, there's no trees, there's no grass, there's rock everywhere. These formations.
No trees, no grass, just rock everywhere? We didn't see anything else? I feel like we might have seen something else. Also, for some reason, the time difference doesn't impact this exploration. By this point, it's revealed that time is moving at like a year per second.
That's why everything was so different on the surface. We've been down here a really long time.
What?
And whatever, dude. Who gives a shit about them getting out of the cave then? Even after they figure this out, their goal is still to escape the cave and get back to their families. Why? Your world is dead. There's nothing for you out there. Why should we as the audience even care about this? There's no hope for you. Sure, they get out in the distant future, saved by future humans, I guess. But again, who cares? There were no stakes because the game was over as soon as they spent 30 seconds in this cave and their natural lifespans vanished behind them. At risk of sounding like I didn't like Time Trap, this movie fucking sucks. It is the worst example of time travel because it doesn't know what it's doing with it. In contrast to the Grand Tour where Ben figures everything out at the same pace as the audience, these morons just refuse to acknowledge anything happening around them. But even if that wasn't the case, time moves too fast outside of the cave for anything to matter. Had they just slowed it down and made the characters aware of the rapid progression of time, it could have been a cool race against the cave where they keep yo-yoing in and out with full awareness of how much time they're losing. But that would build tension, which is overrated. Instead, we just get this ridiculous story where we have to wait for them to catch up to us, and then the only payoff is that this little freak gets brought back to life so he can show the future what the world was like before they put Respect Women juice into the tap water.
Well, it's not quite home, but at least we're all together.
Together? Like, together?
Shut up.
Now, I know it seems like I'm poking holes in their time travel, which is exactly what I was criticizing a week ago, but I don't care. Time travel or not, this movie sucks ass and lacks everything that made the Grand Tour great. And I know it may seem weird to compare these two movies specifically, but it's because they both take a pretty unique approach to time travel and are very solidly B movies. They're both mysteries where time travel stuff happens to our protagonists rather than our protagonists doing time travel stuff. And I like that. The Grand Tour shows us the perspective of a person being visited by time travelers. And Time Trap shows us how a group of sea sponges might handle some not very complex circumstances. It puts all its cards on the table in the first minute, has all the characters stare at the cards, ignore them, and then go, guys, where are the cards? For 90 minutes. Fuck Time Trap. I'm back, let's talk horse, get out of here. Okay, so let's look at our main players here. First is the car. Does this car have enough hood to hold a horse without it just sliding off immediately? This appears to be a 1977-ish Ford Country Squire, which fell into the LTD lineup of Ford automobiles. This era of Ford station wagon was actually the peak in terms of length, so it's safe to assume the hood was rather long. To confirm, I found a group on Facebook and just asked in a respectful and relaxed way. They did not answer. But I'll assume the hood's pretty big. A horse could probably get up on there, as is evident by the fact that they actually did put the horse up on there, according to Mr. Toohey. Okay, so we know the horse was up there, but again, looking at just simple mechanics, the car is not going that fast. A frame by frame will show that the horse actually lifts its leg and is sort of already off center from the vehicle, right? So if the horse were to get hit, those legs are just going forward. And I can't even imagine that the horse could somehow roll all the way over. It just doesn't make any sense. The car would have to be going pretty fast. And again, listen, I don't know shit about horses or cars or driving in the snow where there's horses and cars. I've seen news articles about deer being flung through people's windshields and just going nuts in the cabin, and people not surviving that interaction. But I have yet to find what David Toohey is referring to in his email. I looked at countless news articles through like the 70s and 80s, whatever I could find, to sort of confirm what Mr. Toohey said in his email about him getting this from just like a news article. I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I know it's 30 years ago, sir, but that's just not possible. I've seen situations where horses landed topside on top of people's cars and killing them that way, but nothing out there shows or supports that a horse can land hooves first and stay there long enough to obliterate passengers. I just don't think it's going to happen. So, TimeScape, the Grand Tour, perfect time travel mechanics in my opinion, which holds just as much weight as yours because we know the same amount about time travel. But where it fumbles is in this horse thing, where that didn't need to happen at all. It doesn't matter how the main character's wife dies before the movie starts. There was no reason for it to be this absurd. Watch the movie. It means nothing. The horse's involvement means nothing at all. Nobody even brings it up. Nobody's like, Ben, I don't believe you. This doesn't make any sense. Like the mayor or the judge kind of alludes to it, but it's more just like he thinks Ben is a coward for not fighting the horse. That's ridiculous. Nobody questions the horse thing, and it's been 30 years. I understand it's been 30 plus years, but come on. So that's it. That's my horse video, my time travel horse video. I do have more time travel topics to talk about, but I feel like I need a break from thinking about horses or time travel and horses. I guess there's no horses in other time travel movies. Well, that's not true. That's a fucking lie.